My fiancé planned a secret hotel night with her ex, so I exposed her to her parents in the middle of the night. I'm a 27-year-old guy, and about 3 years ago, I met my fiancé, a 25-year-old woman, while working as a bartender at a popular downtown spot. She came in with friends after work, and we hit it off right away. Our relationship progressed quickly, and within a year, we were living together. 6 months ago, I proposed, and everything seemed perfect until about 2 weeks ago when I started noticing small changes in her behavior. She began working late more frequently, which was unusual given her job as an administrative assistant. Her phone was always face down, and she'd take calls in another room. At first, I brushed it off as wedding planning stress, especially with our big day just 3 months away. But then the red flags started piling up, and I couldn't ignore them anymore. She changed her phone password. When I casually asked her about it, she claimed she'd been getting spam calls and wanted to be extra cautious. However, I'd often catch her smiling at her phone late at night, quickly hiding it when I walked into the room. The final straw came one night when I overheard her on the phone while she was in the shower. I was in the laundry room grabbing towels when I heard her giggling and saying, "I can't wait to see you two. Yes, I'll wear that outfit you like." She clearly thought the shower noise would cover her voice. That night, I couldn't sleep. While she was peacefully sleeping, I did something I never imagined I would. I checked her phone. After a few attempts, I figured out that her new password was her ex's birthday. What I found made my blood boil. She had been texting her ex-boyfriend who had recently moved back to town. Their messages went back nearly 2 months, starting out innocently. Enough, but quickly becoming flirtatious, then explicit. They had already met up for coffee 3 times, and now they were planning something bigger, a hotel rendezvous that Friday night. She had told me she was going to visit her sister in the next town over, but in reality, they had everything planned. The room number, the time to meet, and even the wine to order from room service. I sat there for hours, reading through the messages, taking screenshots, and sending them to my phone. The next day, I called in sick to work and started making my own plans. First, I called her parents, who had always treated me like family, and her father especially had welcomed me with open arms. When I showed them the messages, her mother broke down crying, and her father, well, I'd never seen him so angry. Together with her parents, we devised a plan. Her father insisted on being there when everything came to light. He wanted to see firsthand what his daughter had become. Her mother was hesitant at first, but ultimately agreed. It had to happen. For the next few days, I pretended everything was normal. It was the hardest act I've ever had to put on. Every time she kissed me, every time she smiled at me, all I could think about were those messages. She kept talking about wedding plans, asking for my thoughts on invitation designs. It made my stomach turn. Then, Friday came. She packed an overnight bag, saying she'd be back Saturday afternoon after visiting her sister. She even asked me what I wanted her to bring back from her sister's favorite bakery. The level of detail in her lies was chilling. I waited an hour after she left, then drove to the hotel with her parents. I had already called the hotel earlier that week, explaining the situation to the manager, who was a mutual friend. He was understanding and agreed to help us. He gave us a key to the adjacent room and promised to notify us when they checked in. Around 8 p.m., we got the call. She and her ex were in the room. The manager confirmed they'd ordered champagne and dinner. We waited another hour, giving them time to settle in, believing they'd gotten away with it. At exactly 9:15 p.m., we made our move. Her father insisted on knocking. There was music playing inside, and we could hear laughter. The knocking continued for almost a minute before the music quieted. "Room service!" I called out, disguising my voice. We heard some shuffling, whispers, and then footsteps, followed by the door opening. There she was, standing in lingerie barely covered by a hotel robe. The look on her face when she saw us, her parents and me, was one of shock, quickly followed by horror and then shame. Her ex tried to slip into the bathroom, but her father's booming voice stopped him. "Get out here, boy. If you're man enough to sleep with an engaged woman, you're man enough to face her family." The next 20 minutes were complete chaos. Her ex tried to shift the blame to her, claiming she pursued him and had told him she was unhappy with me. She retaliated, accusing him of manipulating her. Then she turned to me, tears streaming down her face, pleading for me to understand that it was a mistake and that she still loved me. Her father cut through all the excuses with a single question. "Did you plan this?" When she couldn't answer, he pulled out his phone and started reading their messages aloud. Everything I had forwarded to him. All the flirtations, the lies, and the details of their plan. Her ex tried to slip out during this, but I blocked the door. "You helped ruin what would have been a marriage," I told him. "The least you can do is stay and face the consequences." That's when she tried a new tactic. She accused me of violating her privacy by checking her phone, but her father immediately shut that down. You lost any right to privacy when you chose to cheat on the man we welcomed into our family as a son. Her mother, who had been silent until then, finally spoke up. We raised you better than this, she said, her voice trembling. You've not only betrayed your fiancé, but you've betrayed the trust of this entire family. Then came the desperate attempts to salvage the situation. She promised to cut off all contact with her ex, go to counseling, and even suggested postponing the wedding until she could prove herself trustworthy again. Her ex, seeing her desperation, began edging away, clearly not wanting to deal with the drama. That's when I revealed the final bombshell. While you were planning this little evening, I said, pulling out my phone, I've been busy too. I've already contacted all our wedding vendors, the venue, the caterers, the florist, everyone. I've explained the situation and canceled everything. The color drained from her face. We had already paid deposits for most of the services, and her parents had contributed a significant amount for the venue. Surprisingly, the vendors were understanding. Some of them are issuing refunds because of the circumstances, I continued. A few are keeping the deposits, but your parents agreed that's a small price to pay to find out your true character before the wedding. Her ex saw his opportunity and tried to make a run for it. This is between you guys, he said, grabbing his jacket. I'm out of here. He shot her one last glance, but she wasn't looking at him anymore. She was staring at me, then at her parents, realizing how completely her elaborate deception had unraveled. You can stay here for the night, I told her. I'll be at our apartment, well, my apartment now, packing your things. Your parents have agreed to store them at their house until you figure out your living situation. Her father added, you can stay with us temporarily, but only until you find your own place. Your mother and I need time to process this betrayal. The disappointment in his voice was clear. She began to protest, but I cut her off. The lease is in my name. I've already spoken to the landlord. You have 30 days to officially move your things out, but I want you gone sooner. Consider this your formal notice. As we turned to leave, she made one last, desperate plea. Please, she begged. At least talk to me privately. We can work this out. I looked at her, really looked at her, for the last time. There's nothing to work out, I said. You didn't make a mistake. You made a series of calculated decisions. You chose to contact your ex. You chose to meet him in secret. You chose to plan this night. You chose to lie to me about visiting your sister. Each of those was a conscious decision. The next few weeks passed in a blur of paperwork and logistics. As promised, I packed her things that night carefully, despite my anger. Her parents came the next day to pick everything up. She tried calling and texting nonstop for the first week, alternating between apologies, accusations, and pleas for another chance. I blocked her number. Word spread quickly through our social circle. She tried to spin the story in her favor, but I had the evidence, the screenshots, the hotel receipts, even witnesses and her own parents. Most of our friends sided with me, and those who didn't, I was content to lose. 3 months later, what would have been our wedding day, I took a solo trip to a beach I'd always wanted to visit. As I sat there watching the sunset, I felt nothing but relief. Relief that I discovered the truth before marriage, before kids, before our lives became deeply intertwined. Her parents still keep in touch. They recently told me she moved to another city for a fresh start. Her ex apparently ghosted her completely after that night at the hotel. Last I heard, she's in therapy, finally facing the consequences of her actions.